Henry Woodman was on the dating game.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing live show number 123. Yes,
For those of you keeping count.
For those of you, Ed and I have spent a lot of time together, and so too Robert and Tim Peter and Holly Zoba, and oh my gosh, we hopefully, fingers crossed, we have a guest host today, Hayden Shaw. And it should be, if he gets to make it, if there's no technical issues, which our show never has. I mean, Ed, you know this.
We pride ourselves in having a very low, and there's Hayden. We pride ourselves in having a very low occurrence of technical issues.
Right.
It's usually only 15 minutes a show.
or 15 times a show. It's a toss-up between both. Hayden,
Right.
I see you popping in. That's good. That's good.
Yep. So Hayden, you have to hit, there's two icons at the top of your browser. You have to hit two of them. One will unmute you, and one will turn on a camera for you.
I actually, and just to be a good hoster, I actually put that in an email to make sure that he knew that those were the two buttons at the top he had to hit. Actually, you know what we
buried it. You buried it in like 14 paragraphs of content. Lauren.
No, I write very short emails. You're the one with the long emails. You have long emails like no, yes.
Great.
I have short emails like, at the dawn of time, there was this creation. Oh, Hayden. Right up on the top of the screen, I'm hoping that you do hear us and everything is a wonderful world for you. At the top of the screen, there are five icons.
From left to right, you want to hit the first two on the left.
You got the microphone, and there he is.
There's camera, and now hit the microphone.
Oh, nope. Not audio yet. The microphone's on.
Can you see us?
Nope. No audio yet. Nope. The audio is not on.
We cannot hear you.
The microphone says it's on, but the microphone is not connected, or the microphone of choice is not connected, I should say. There is a microphone issue. There's a visual. We got visual good. You got quite a book collection behind you, Hayden. My goodness.
Leather-bound books.
Yes. It looks like you're in a library with a ladder. He actually has a ladder to get to shelves with books on them. He reads way more than I do. Nope. Still no audio. We see you. Nope. No, it's off. And then turn it back on, or no. Yeah, it says the microphone's on, but there's no microphone.
But perhaps your computer is not working. Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
That?
Okay.
We can read lips. So from here, go ahead and talk, and I will speak for you, Hayden.
He'll interpret it. I wouldn't actually trust Ed in that capacity. I'm just saying now that's not a. I tried it once, and what I thought I was saying didn't actually come across very well. No. This is
Do you have one of your millennial children available? Sorry, for everyone who doesn't know, I got to hear Hayden speak, and it's one of the more fun topics that I've gotten to sit through at these, many types of GM and DOS conferences that I attend. And I immediately, was excited to invite him onto this show because I instantly thought that our audience would quite enjoy hearing some of his perspective.
All right, microphone source. Mr. Robert Cole's joining us, but hold on here. Hayden, if you want to try a microphone source, you need to indicate on your computer that you have a microphone source that you're using. Because you have a Bluetooth in your, maybe that it's thinking it's talking to it, or it's... If it's Apple, I can help. Microsoft, I think Mr. Robert would be more authority-based.
Yeah. Hey, just in time.
Exactly. Tech support, how may I help you?
Level 1.
Hey.
So Hayden, first thing I would suggest you try is actually shutting down and restarting your computer. Sorry about that. It's usually the thing that actually it ends up being.
Yeah.
What kind of computer are you using?
Windows? Yes. All right. Microphone source. Mr. Robert, how would he find his audio source, what he's using for audio source?
If he's using Windows 10, I would say you could probably open your, I'm trying to think what you call it, start button.
control panel.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if it'd be the device manager or not, though. I would maybe just put in sound. Yeah, under the control panel would be sound, and then.
And Mr. Stewart's joining us.
Stuart Butler.
Yeah, I would think it would be sound, and then like the microphone or microphone array, making sure that that's working.
Are there batteries in your wireless microphone? I used to do tech support. You got to start with the simple stuff.
Is your computer plugged
Is
in?
that you're actually wearing on your head a microphone?
No. When I was a systems manager way back in my second job for hotel, that was always the first question: is the terminal plugged in?
Stuart Butler. With
There we go.
Holiday sweater. I love it. By the way, my daughter went to school with that same exact sweater on this morning because it was Saturday, and she was.
Tell me you went to the midnight showing. Tell me you went to the midnight showing.
I went to the 7 p.m.
Perfect. Someone grab a screenshot of that. Stuart froze.
Show. Right after
the 3 p.m. showing this afternoon. So.
Are you?
Oh, now see, Stuart's sweater scared off Hayden.
Yeah, actually, Stuart, you have this semi gauze covering of your lens. I think
it's a little
really.
Yeah,
it's a little bit foggy.
Lick the screen.
It's steamy. It's steamy today in the office, huh?
Yeah. Actually, for everyone
He's
else,
all huffing and puffing, thinking about the excitement.
That's right. It's all the hot air of being talking. For sure.
So wait, has everybody seen it?
No.
I'm going at 3:00 this afternoon. So
I'm actually.
So here's what happens.
We knew you were going to do this. We knew you were going to be like, and guess what? And you know who Ray's parents are? This is what happens.
Hey, Stuart. Yeah. Thanks for the chocolates, by the way. Stuart sent quite a nice care package to the Flip 2 office. Very much appreciated.
They've helped us get a lot of business this year, so it's the least we could do. For sure.
By the way, I since we're waiting for Hayden and don't need to talk about anything, I just got off another call from an organization inside of Myrtle Beach. Stuart, I understand now why you guys play so heavily in Myrtle Beach. It is unlike any other market I've come across in the best way possible. I've never seen such cooperation across all the different businesses inside that market to drive the better good of the overall market. It's amazing.
Yep. Yeah, there's 2 or 3 key players that have been around since the beginning that really genuinely wanted to help the market grow, and that mentality is just disseminated through everyone.
It's amazing.
Because I used to go to China about that, because I was always amazed that when I was dealing with people from when I was dealing with Australian clients, and in China, there's this open communication of rates and inventories and capabilities.
Oh, well, in the Asia Pac market, first of all, I can tell you as a vendor, never give someone a deal in the Asia Pac market, because
everybody knows it.
Within minutes, you will have phone calls with your existing clients going, "What the heck?" I think they have a Slack channel.
Pretty close.
Hey, I do have a show and tell later on if anybody's interested. I had a wonderful video made by Holly on my departure on my last. Robert, you saw it. A lovely little video where people tearfully said how much they enjoyed my engagement with him during my tenure at HSMAI.
I did.
So this is a Lauren Gray hype video. I'm all.
I did not see the video. All I heard was the audio because I was on just a phone line instead of the full video. But I thought Lauren had passed away.
And he did. Did Lauren die?
He's exactly what Holly was trying to get to.
Although I think
Lauren
she shortened
is no
my
longer
tenure
with us.
Yeah, Lauren is no longer with us, and remember, but they shortened my tenure. I'd been with them for almost 15 years, but they only listed 10, so I guess they don't want to count 5 of it. I don't know, but we'll see.
Do you really want them to count all of those?
No, probably not.
Some of them.
Not. Yeah,
glaze over. Yeah. By the way, so next Monday, Flip 2 is having a holiday party, and the folks at Reunion were nice enough to lend us one of their mansions. And I will be taking pictures for you guys because one of the bedrooms in the mansion has a bunk bed in it shaped like an AT-AT walker.
Oh. That's pretty cool.
Just for consistency, we should at least mention the word hospitality somewhere in the first 10 minutes of our show.
I said reunion resort. I said hospitality.
No. Just because we're having this technical issue getting Hayden on. We're just like, okay, at least should throw in the word hospitality just to say we're still with the hospitality.
Now, one question. Okay, everybody's hyped up about Star Wars, but how many people watch SpaceX today? Go and launch and return reusable.
Yeah, they've done it before.
That was pretty good, though. They got the big.
Kind of like the guys after Apollo, 11. We've done it once.
Yeah. We've done it once.
Yeah.
No one talks about who the third mission on the moon was. I mean, except for Tim, but.
Oh, here's Tim, the Yoda of Hospitality Digital Marketing Live Show.
Smart I am. It's everything Star Wars today, Tim. Sorry, we're just.
I walked in late on that. I was like, "Geez, I might look terrible today."
You're looking a little green there, Tim.
A little green. At 1,000 years old.
Did you cut your hair, or did your ears get bigger?
Both, actually.
All right, this is Hayden.
Hey, we can hear you.
I'm sorry. This is going to be pathetic, but does anybody know how to flip the camera on a surface? I had to go to my
Robert does.
Yes, I do. You have come to the right.
Because right now you're seeing my LG watch charge.
Yes, exactly.
Nice.
Have had the same problem. What you need to do is to go into Device Manager, and I can tell you exactly. This is a really ridiculous thing that Microsoft has not fixed in any of their versions here.
Surprise!
Hey, it's a pretty good.
Usually so good at that, It's
and then you want to go. Then once you open the Device Manager, you want to go to System Devices, and under that you want to go to Microsoft Camera Rear, and disable that device.
Microsoft. Okay, I'm at System Devices. There's a big list. Now what?
Yep, Microsoft Camera Rear.
You just want to say that over again, didn't you?
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Play us in.
There's a Microsoft Camera Front too. So.
Tim is bring us home. Bring us home, Tim.
Microsoft Camera Rear, and then right click, and you should be able to say Disable Device. And I'm not sure if you have to log out or restart or what.
Of course you'll have to.
I can't remember that.
I'm sorry, gentlemen. Sadly, between the time I used my computer this morning and I logged in for this call, Microsoft was doing updates. And so that's one of the reasons the sound wouldn't work, nor would it move at any speed.
Yes.
So the service was the punt. And
well,
I'm sorry, I can't
actually
find Microsoft under anything here, so we may just need to do this reverse.
You don't need to see us.
You don't need to see us.
There we go.
Yeah. Now we can make faces and do all sorts of things.
And you'll just
that is a beautiful thing. That's right. So
Stuart, stop standing up. Stuart, stop standing up, man.
Hey, terribly sorry we're having technical issues with it today, but we are so happy that you're here with us. Please bring us back to sanity and welcome.
Tim is going to play like an introduction. Tim's got a guitar here.
I've been doing the little country music,
So Hayden, I'm excited to finally get you on the show. This is Ed speaking, since you can't see me.
Hi, Ed.
I was fortunate to attend Benchmark's Leadership Summit earlier this year, and Hayden was the keynote speaker, talking about managing the different generations inside of an organization. The thing that always rings in my head is it's the end of the world as we know it. It was something that was repeated quite heavily. And then also, fortunately, I got to be the next person on stage after Hayden. No pressure or anything. And I got to talk about influencer marketing, nowhere near as fun. But, as soon as
it may not have been as fun, but they were taking notes like crazy. And so.
Well, because you always speak with confidence, Hayden. Not always right, but always confident.
Yes, Ed rarely prepares, but is always confident.
That's right. So Hayden, I wanted to have him come on the show, one, because, I'm on the other end of what he generally talks about, being the youngest person on this show by quite a bit.
Which, by the way, Ed brings up
every show.
Yeah.
You look a hell of a lot older than Stuart, Ed.
I'm not as weathered as he is.
Yeah, well, Stuart's got clean living helping him, and he also does have a fog effect on his camera. So Hayden, why don't you tell the guys here what you do? And we generally give the first 30 minutes of the show from whenever you start to you to talk about anything you'd like to talk about.
Yeah, you bet. So what I started People Driven Results, and we do two things. We help organizations figure out what to do now that there are 5 generations to deal with. And the second thing is then we help them with change, often related to the generational changes they need to make to be a culture that can keep millennials. That's probably the question I get asked most. How do we attract and keep millennials without accelerating the leaving of all the boomers who are now feeling like we're doing everything to make millennials happy, and they are, to use their phrase, chopped liver. And so usually there's a change process to help with that. Some organizations just focus on change, but often they do the combination. The books I've written are about generations, and so that's what I work with probably 75% of the time. And that's where Ed and I met, was helping a hospitality company who wants to focus on the enhancing the user's experience. Think about how does that user experience change in hospitality with different generations, and not just different price points or different different submarkets, but how does slicing it generationally help create a kind of a enhanced experience that would get people to talk online in the kind of way that attracts all generations now, but especially attracts people 43 and under.
Oh, the young ones. Wow. Okay.
Is it crazy that 43 and under are the young one?
That made a few people on this one go, oh. 43 is young now? Oh.
Well, no, I certainly understand that. Because I asked specifically for about 13 technology things when I hired a virtual admin, and the service said, oh, you mean a millennial? I said, well, I certainly couldn't say that because, that's not legal. But somebody who can do all of this technology and rapidly learn others. And so they found me a 29-year-old who has told me more than once, I like working for you because you're like a father, you're like a father-in-law. And, so that hurts a bit. But, doing this, you hear that regularly, that, that's one of the things that millennials like is, I feel like I could relate to this person like a family member. But last night, I happened to be on a Zoom that actually worked. I want to go on record saying the Zoom call worked from the first moment. Anyway, so it does happen sometimes. And so my wife walked in, and I gave her a smooch. And it was so funny. My admin went, oh, gross, I'm logging off if you do this again. And I said, why? You don't like to watch fat old people kiss? She went, no. And that's when I truly felt old this week.
That's right.
So here's what was funny about this, and it was something that never really struck me on the difference in, the impact of how you parent your kids and how that has changed the dynamic of relationship that kids have with their parents, and how that changes what these people are looking for in employment. And one of the things Hayden pointed out is that the millennial crowd actually like their parents, like actually want to spend time with them and think they're cool. And he tells this story, it was you with your son at a concert, right, Hayden?
Oh, that's right. You have a good memory. Yeah. Now, just in case I can log on, I'll try the other computer. You keep talking.
Yeah, so Hayden's telling this story of how he goes to a really cool concert with his son and sets up shop kind of in the back of the crowd, gets comfortable, and his son comes over and gives him a lot of crap for not sitting with him, basically saying, I want you to come sit with me. The girls will find me attractive for it, and
he's a pro.
It's kind of like bringing a Labrador to the park.
Right, or a baby. So and Hayden points out that this is a big dynamic change. Like, so if Robert told someone of similar age as him that he thought about them the same way he thought about his parents, it would probably be kind of like, you're a drag, you're insult. I don't want you around type thing. I'm my own thing. We're a millennial. It's actually a positive thing, and like millennials want to travel with their parents, and their parents are part of their their whole social life, and so it was something I'd never thought about before, but that carries over into how they look at different generations of adults inside the work organization, and what they're looking for in types of leadership is a lot different than someone like Robert, who from Four Seasons had a very different upbringing in how he was managed and educated than what a millennial would look for today.
Hayden, if you're not reading between Ed's lines, he's saying Robert's name every chance he gets, because Robert is by far.
I have noticed that Robert gets kind of photobombed here.
Well,
it's out of love and respect. I look at Robert as kind of a father figure to me on this show. more of a grandfather figure.
It's very similar to the way I look to my dad, because my dad was a fighter pilot in World War II, where if you see the little flag going up on Iwo Jima, he was flying Corsairs to make sure that was possible. So it's pretty much the same sort of thing that Ed looks to me.
Right. Robert's time at Cornell and Four Seasons.
But my dad wasn't nearly as badass as my mom. So my mom, unfortunately, very sadly, grew up in a Jewish orphanage in Boston at the height of the Depression. Both of her parents died when she was under 5. Separate incidents too. I mean, just very bad. Grew up in an orphanage, became a registered nurse, and was an operating room nurse in World War II in the Philippines.
Wow.
It doesn't get tougher than that. So my upbringing, when somebody said, actually, I got preemptive no's, would be like, hey, can I? No. And there wasn't a lot of debate back and forth with that sort of thing. They were pretty set with, my dad being in the Marines, she being in the Army. There was a little bit of regimen there. So,
but when your mom is cooler than your Marine fighter pilot dad, that is pretty bad. So Hayden, question for you. So we've just seen two different ends of the age spectrum there, right? We've seen the callow youth and the crusty old fart. And so, how do they work well together in an organization, right? What can they do to work better together?
Seriously, we need to know to get those two to work better together.
Because there's obviously a problem between their communication skills.
Shut up, you whippersnapper! Get off my lawn!
I thought the whip got off my lawn was coming, and especially appropriate. I got 3 thoughts about Ed's story and then your question. First, to Ed's story, the fact that they like their parents and travel together is kind of a game changer in the hospitality space. Yeah. I was with a woman who made $100,000 a year, and she was lamenting the fact that her good Catholic mother said that when she moved in with this guy, they had to pay for their own vacation, and she was lamenting the fact that her school teacher mother and her retired father were not going to pay for her vacation anymore, even though she made twice as much money as they did. And so it was kind of a rite of passage for her at 27, 28.
Yep.
Right.
That's a new, you see it all the time in the industry, but that's a new angle where where an influencer who knows how to use digital technology is actually the child who is going on vacation with the parents and sending them information on where we ought to go. So that's a huge shift. Secondly, that people like their parents and want to hang out with their parents, and that you remind me of my mother as a compliment. Now, the number of women who are, VPs or middle managers in their 40s or 50s who've said, my young millennial hire said I remind them of their mother, and I had to go into the bathroom and throw up, is kind of that happens all the time. But for them, it's the highest compliment, and it can catch you off guard if, like you were joking with Robert, you've got Iwo Jima stories, and in your era, you remind me of my mother is actionable in court, and so that's that's kind of a different change. And then how do we get those generations to play nice in the sandbox? The research shows that humor is one of the best ways to do it. When people are comfortable enough with each other to talk about different generations and laugh about it, you have got to the other side of it. And because those generational differences and values are going to come up, that's part of what makes life fun. Just like mango makes chutney kind of interesting and exotic, even though your restaurants running the same recipe all over, at least all over North America, it has an exotic flair to it because it's not the same thing as what was normally in a chutney till people started traveling around the world looking for recipes. And the same thing happens in organizations. We can get to the other side of it and laugh about it. It adds some interest and some spice as well as complexity. Generations add complexity to the recipe. And if we can acknowledge that, then we can begin to say, great, how do we deal with greater complexity when most of us, just to protect calories and brain drain, try to reduce the amount of complexity we have to deal with in the average day?
Mm-hmm. Makes total sense.
Thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm. We're screwed because there's no one here with a sense of humor, so this multi-generational thing is never going to work.
No, I think that's true. I think all you've got left is Star Wars and Star Trek to talk about, while a pathetically older guest still tries to figure out their technology. I think that's all you got.
Pretty much nailed every episode of this show, I think.
Yeah, pretty much.
I've been watching. Well, see, listen, I just found it interesting because being I guess I'm not even a Gen Xer anymore. I keep getting bounced around. I'm now
you do. You're right on that cusp. You get bounced.
Yeah, I'm a cusper. I've always looked at generations very differently. So first of all, I've always identified with older people. Even as a child, I preferred talking to adults than other kids. Obviously, in this show, I enjoy talking with older people.
I thought you were going to say children instead of adults.
I think it could go either way.
They're older, but they're very childish. Yeah.
It's funny. Like, I've never put a lot of thought into it because I've always looked at people as people. Like, I don't look at age. I don't see age when I see someone because I don't see a difference because Lauren is as advanced as an 18-year-old, and I've met 18-year-olds as advanced as Robert. So
I'll take it. I'm
sitting through Hayden talking was one thing. Like I learned a lot, but actually what I really enjoyed was the way we were sitting as we were at collaborative tables, and at the table was 5 different generations basically, and I'm the Gen Xer, cusper, millennial, edge person, and I'm looking at their faces as Hayden's saying things that I'm just kind of like, let's start with, first of all, everyone's a human being. It doesn't matter if you're the president of a company, it doesn't matter if you're the janitor, you're a human being. And one of the ways I've always taken avoiding offending someone is, one, just be offensive to everyone, and then they can't say you're
there. It is.
Like,
you are not being singled out.
I'm not singling out anyone.
With confidence.
To avoid offending people. Come on.
Right.
I'm not leaving.
With confidence.
But to also understand that in a management standpoint, I've always thought in a management standpoint, you will get more success bending to the people around you than you'll get trying to make people to bend to your will. And if you realize that it's not about you, it's about, what we're all trying to accomplish, and you can get over your stuff far easier than you can convince people to get over their stuff. It's always the approach I've taken. So I've never really put it through like scientific thought process like Hayden has, and he speaks about and puts quite a bit of humor in it. But, I was enjoying it, but I was watching the people around me and they were just like, yes, hallelujah. Like the people were like, yes, he says the things I think and it's amazing. And, But it is quite funny. It was, because I had someone across the table from me she was in her 20s. She was already a director of sales of a hotel, and this was at a Benchmark forum. So these are nice hotels. Like these aren't,
good for her.
Starter hotels. So she's very impressive. And then the head of marketing for the corporate Benchmark was there, and a few other people. And I'm just watching kind of how they're taking what Hayden's saying, and that actually made it. I think it's why it's like everything he was saying stuck in my head so much, because this was what, February, Hayden, was when this was, I think, and I still remember most of what he said, or April, most of what he said I still remember. But it's cemented in my brain because I was watching people's reactions to the different points he was making, and it's funny. I think the corporate world needs to talk about this more and understand, first of all, what millennials want are because the baby boomers parented their kids a specific way. Like, so you shouldn't be offended.
Let me say two or three things about that. First, here are just three ideas of how the parenting changed. The first one is, my father was a good traditionalist. He's 85 now. Now, he had a PhD in speech communications, so you would think he would use more modern techniques, but it's not true. As when he was a parent mode, the Indiana dirt farmer came out of him, and he had three great lines. I'll give you something to cry about. Don't make me turn this car around, or don't make me stop the car if it was over 2 hours. Yeah. And children should be seen and not heard.
My dad said all three of those.
Bingo!
Yeah.
My dad is 86. He wasn't from Indiana, but we grew up in the same house, man.
Exactly.
Yeah. They all went to
Sounds
school.
familiar.
Well, no, let me ask you this: if you wouldn't eat your food, were there starving children in China or India? Because there was an East Coast and a West Coast school.
Ethiopia for Ethiopia.
Yeah.
It was the Clean Plate
gotcha.
Club.
That was a smaller parenting training school in the South. Was Ethiopia or Africa? Good.
Yeah, Ethiopia.
And so, my old man raised us the way he was raised, and it was a very children should be seen and not heard. Here's the difference: parenting came along, and parenting said, you need to have a dialogue with your child. And so all the parenting was about conversations, and the children should be seen and not heard generation is now managing the use your words, not your fists, and let's problem solve. And how does this make you feel generation? And for some of us, we click into a power or a parenting frame when we show up at work in a management role and got a bunch to get done and a lot of moving parts. Yeah. And we will double our generational turnover with people 45 and under if we work in that frame, because for them, the best for the Xers, especially older Xers, the best professors or mentors were people who asked questions and had dialogue. For millennials, they like their parents if they had dialogue, and they'll say, "Oh, you remind me of my mom," which means you're really cool. I can have a conversation with you, and I don't mind you telling me what to do, because I feel you're highly approachable and I feel you're full of respect. Worldwide study of generations found that was the two key things for millennials.
Mm-hmm. So I have a funny story. About this. I just took my daughter to my 19-year-old daughter. I'm Gen X, by the way. I'm very much in the middle of all this, right? And there's not enough of us for anybody to give a damn about. But
spoken like a true Gen Xer.
Yeah, really. That's great, baby. Nobody cares about us. They care about the boomers and the millennials. Anyway,
they really don't. They really don't. I get feeds of news feeds of all the generations, and maybe twice a year something comes out about Generation X. Because frankly, you're so small. Nobody but Volkswagen and their Farfignugan and their made up little dancing stickmen care about you.
Exactly. So, but I'm a weird Gen X in this regard, because I'm a Gen Xer. But my parents are the silent generation, right? They're the folks who were older. I was the youngest in my family. My siblings were all boomers. Where was I going with this? Oh, so I took my 19-year-old daughter to stay with her grandparents. And her grandparents are in their 70s, right? So they're very much boomers and the like. And she's going to be staying with them for a few months while she's going to school and everything. And her grandmother said something to her that was a little snarky, a little, my roof, my rules kind of thing, vaguely, in a nice way, but it was definitely there. So later that day, my daughter was driving me to the airport, and she said, that was really weird. She said, my friends always talked about rebelling against their parents and not doing what their parents wanted. I never really had that with you guys. And today, I got it for the first time. I was like, interesting. So it's exactly what you're talking about. We weren't a regular mom. We were a cool mom.
Yeah.
We have a great relationship with our kids, but it was funny to see that and then have you say this. I have a question for you about that. One of the things that I see and perceive and have read about and the like, but I want your take on this is, people talk about millennials being entitled. And my particular take on this, my point of view on this is that they are, in the sense that they are reacting to the world as it is, not the world as it was 10 or 15 or 20 or 25 years ago. That you get too many people who say, well, back in my day, okay, but it's not that day anymore. It's today, right? Yeah. So, is that valid? Is that real? What's your take on millennials and entitled and all that kind of stuff, right?
I agree with you.
Yes. I like being right. That's always important to me.
He's going to run with that for a long time. Well. He's going to run with
good start. You've started well with
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And sorry, gentlemen, I'm not hooked into a wire. This is just wireless, and it's slow and a little bouncy. The three things. I've said that like 6 times, I know. 3 things. Number 1, they're entitled because their parents know about the world they're going into, and my grandfather knew nothing about my father's world.
Right.
When my father went off to college, my grandfather was disappointed because it was a family farm, and he was the firstborn, and the firstborn takes it over. So my grandfather was a bit sad.
Oh, sure.
He said to him, if you needed to know how to breech birth a calf, if you needed to know what field to rotate to, I could help you. I know nothing about the world you're going into, so let me give. I saved up a semester of tuition, and I wish I could help.
Yeah.
I have 3 boys and a daughter. My 3 boys are all business majors. My 3 boys would talk over classes with me. Should I take this class or that class? My 3 boys would ask me for help on homework. Dad, we got to do this group project. And I made them all, I work part-time with Franklin Covey. I made them all go through Stephen Covey's 7 Habits between their senior year and their freshman year in college. They're like, hey, give me something on habit 4 and think way to win. I got to do this thing on conflict. So I'm sending them over 25 pages of notes and some slides. Franklin Covey, I know we're not supposed to do that, but it's my kids. Back up. And so, okay, I think we just answered the question of are they coddled or entitled. And so I was there to help them because I had the expertise to help them. They call me about their jobs at least once a month, often 3 times a month if they've got something challenging going on, because I'm their primary resource. We told them all their life, go use all your resources. And then their parents are their primary resource. 1 out of every 3 people 35 and under contact their parents at least once a day. 15% of them more than once a day. And so they see their parents as friends and resources. That's a different animal. Now, what that means is, and this is especially hard for boomers. I hear this all over the world. I hear it a lot in hospitality. I hear it in every industry, but I hear it a lot in hospitality. Why do the millennials expect me to tell them what to do? Show some initiative and figure it out. Because the adults in my life I have all been sources of help. The jerks have been the people who told me, go figure it out. My parents bought me a batting coach. They got me a tutor. I got a coach that got me into college. And now you're telling me go figure it out. I'm going on Glassdoor and saying my boss is a big lower end of a weight-bearing mammal. And so if you're an authority figure and you want to cut your generational turnover in half, then you have to be a person that is seen as a source of help and advice rather than go figure it out. Right. Thirdly, they're not entitled in that snowflakes is what I hear. They're snowflakes. Here's the bottom line. The research is showing they have higher levels of depression, higher levels of anxiety, and what's coming out on Generation Z is that it's even more than with the millennials. Why? I think it's because people are simply reporting more of what's always been there. And my generation didn't have ADHD. We were just smacked good and hard.
Right. Right.
So here's something I did want to ask you, Hayden. I actually think I think we're going to end up either soon or years from now splitting the generation, because I think the older millennials are very sorry, Robert just got tapped. Robert, is it an important question?
It's Kelso. Yeah, my
Robert's cat just tapped him on the shoulder. He has something to say. I actually think the millennials are going to get split into two different generations, at least from the work perspective, because I've seen a very different type of work ethic out of older millennials versus younger millennials. And I actually think the younger millennials, the 20 to maybe 25, feel more like a Gen Xer to me on their approach to things. And the 25 plus millennial I see kind of fitting more of what you hear millennials talked about in the challenges. I mean, do any of you see this or?
Oh yeah. I see the difference. Yeah. Between my two daughters, night and day. One's 27, one's 20. And yeah, I mean, the younger one was just, she's here over break. She has 3 jobs. She's just going boom, 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 boom. And, she's going to be an occupational therapist. She's planning on getting, I don't know how many hundreds of hours. Next summer, she's going to have 200 hours of shadowing people plus carrying 2 jobs. And she just wants to do that. She wants to get into a grad school. She wants the background, and she is like, focused and burning on it. So the other one,
taking after her mother. She's taking after her mother.
Yeah, exactly. Her older sister went and got a master's degree and things like that, but it wasn't the same. Like driven. And I don't know. I always kind of looked at it as just the difference between the kids, right? They're just different kids. But yeah, maybe it's something where maybe it is an age, different generation.
Three thoughts in the data about that. Number one, you just pointed out what I spend much of my time researching and what is the cutting edge of generational research. And that is life stages.
Well, life stages. Yeah.
I mean, you did hear me speak and mention it, so I'm not trying to be a hater or anything, but you little cheater. They're
used to it, Hayden. They're used to it.
So between 18 and 28 is a new life stage called emerging adulthood. Now, think about it this way. We lived 30 years long. In 1900, we died at 48. We live till 78 now. And so 30 years means there's 2 more chapters in a book of life. One before we settle down into adulthood, and that's called emerging adulthood, between adolescence and early adulthood. And then after working life, second adulthood, between retirement and infirmity, or what was called elderly. By the way, in the hospitality space, when it comes to marketing, those are the unidentified flying spending objects. They are both without nesting age children, and therefore they have freedom and they have money and they want experiences more than anything else. Now, it's not that a 32-year-old with a kiddo doesn't want experience. They just can't get it. They can't afford it. And the amount of plastic you have to pack up to take a 2-year-old anywhere makes traveling not worth it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and with schools, they wind up being during, peak demand periods and all that sort of thing where, Absolutely.
Oh, you got it exactly right. We loved our children. We wanted them to have a great education, and we did not think twice about pulling them out of school until the school penalized them in high school. So we went to Disney World during the off season because because we got this. There is definitely a divide. People say to me all the time, "How do we attract millennials? Millennials, early adults, or millennial emerging adults?" Oh, right. Well, brand new minted millennials. Okay, gotcha. So really, are you talking then about emerging adults with a couple of years experience? Are you talking about brand new to the workplace emerging adults? Because there's actually 3 groups that need to be treated differently. No. I'm right now working on a online video course called Be Like Steve, because I've talked to these executives. They're like, what do you want in the brand new hires? Well, if they could just be like Steve, one woman said, if they could be like Steve, they would own me. They get anything they want. And so, all right, what's Steve doing? What's Steve like? And so we're doing a short video series people can offer to their brand new hires that say, don't be that guy. Don't be a punk. Be like Steve, and you can get things that you want to make this job worthwhile. So I think you're right on to it.
Like applying like a 1950s grainy feel to the video, and it's in a gymnasium. Please tell me. I'm Steve, and people generally like me because I bathe daily.
I will say, Ed, that it freaked me out when my photographer's son, at his senior year in college, wanted to up his Instagram, and so he bought a Polaroid camera and a filter so he could shoot Polaroids because they were hot on Instagram. And I thought to myself, if this happens, then suddenly we're gonna be doing a lot of 40s and 50s music and movies again. And and then you got Mad Men, and then it was like shoot me in the head. And then when my 23-year-old son started buying mid-century modern furniture so that he could have it for his apartment, and it was basically all the crap from the Brady Bunch, I tried to run over myself with an SUV.
God help us all when the 70s come back.
I'm telling you, my younger daughter is maid of honor for my older daughter's wedding. I hope she doesn't have to tell me anything like that. But she's gotten a Polaroid camera, and she's kind of documenting this whole thing with Polaroids, which is amazing. I kind of go, you got a freaking iPhone. You can just do, you can do videos.
There's a filter for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
No, but
I'm out in the fridge. I'm out in our garage fridge, and I'm like, what is this crap? Well, it's Polaroid boxes. They last longer if they're in the fridge. So my son's got beer and Polaroids in our fridge.
By the way, that's
the essentials of life. Another key idea, and I think it's personality, and I think it's field, Robert, because you just described my daughter. She wants to be a PA. PA schools are so competitive, 1,000 applications, 60 students, that it's just as hard as medical school now, and you have to have 2,000 paid hours to be competitive. So she's already, so she signed up to be a camp nurse to get, 800 hours in 10 weeks. And now, she's working while she's going to school, finishing her senior year, and doing 2 majors, so she's more attractive. Student council.
A major, 2 minors. Yeah, same thing.
Yep, because you got to do whatever you can to be attractive. And you know what? My business school majors all got good grades. One was a TA. The other's working half-time and then going downtown every weekend and shooting Instagram photos because it's a business degree. And he's not a STEM guy. So part of it's just the different choices they made and the different personalities. Yeah. But the biggest difference in work ethic is, do you have a condo, a serious rent payment, a mortgage, and some kiddos? Once you fall in love and move into a serious relationship, and while 63% of millennials will live together, they also want to marry. 80% of them want to marry. So when people are like, oh, the world is coming apart, marriage is unraveling. Yeah. Read the rest of the survey data, folks, before you do you do your fake news clickbait stuff. They're going to marry. They're just doing it later.
Yeah.
And,
Question to. Sorry. Go ahead.
Please.
Oh no, just I'm thinking about what you're talking about in the future tense of these now being the employees moving into the migration of being the manager, that mirror look to it. What do you see potentially the changes in how they will manage compared to how we're having to manage with them right now? I mean, as they transition from their values and responsibilities as you're describing them into a management role, how will they treat the people behind them from your perspective, based on how they were raised?
Well, great question. And what I mean by that is the rest of the questions sucked. That's why that one's great.
That's only good one. Yeah. The little piece. I go for the little pieces. The rest is garbage.
Really appreciating your approach.
Sorry, I just lost my mind and had a keynoter moment. Great question, great question. Well, if all 7 questions are great questions, you cannot use the superlative for all of them. You little. Yes. Just a solid question, maybe a B- question, just good and average.
In there. I'll take a C. I'll even take a C. It's okay.
If it's passing, he's happy.
I'm happy to pass.
All right,
so I think there's 3 things they're going to 4 things. Let me just give 4 instead of 3 they're going to do differently. Number 1, they're going to move a little faster than those of us who are older are used to.
Okay.
Because of the amount of time, you talk about coddling, older generations need a lot of communication time. Hey, I want to go over this. I want to run this by you. I want FaceTime. Younger generations are like, seriously, do you need to do oral tradition in your knowledge transfer? Can you just put up some FAQs and some videos online and I can search the SharePoint?
Yeah.
That's right. How about an emoji that says life is good?
Yeah.
And, you look at how Facebook does feedback. Facebook's feedback system it was a company that got bought up by Salesforce. So it's in Salesforce now. And it's all about, it looks like Facebook for feedback. You have your little profile, people give you feedback, you post a question, your boss posts a question, and your team members jump in on your boss's feedback question.
Wow.
God.
Which is weirdly freakish compared to, having, and then the boss, when it has all of that information and could go back and look at it all and then prepare it so it's not just the Academy Award effect where your boss remembers the last 2 months and not the project you did 4 months ago where you killed it.
Right.
Yeah, well, you've not done anything much the last 2 months, and I don't have a good memory, and so, only boring movies come out for the Academy Awards. But anyway,
Lauren, I think we can
no Avengers stuff. Yeah. And
we can ask Stuart as one of the younger managers on the show. Stuart, I mean, how do you work with your team?
It's funny. I think how I work with my team is different than how they perceive it, because I see them as peers, and I often mistakenly think that we're the same generation, and I'm 40 managing folks in their early 20s, and then I have to catch myself sometimes and create that the differentiation between our generations. But I take the same approach to management that I do to parenting, which is I believe in being firm, fair, and fun. And making sure there's clear communication, set rules. But then what I've learned with the younger generation is that they need more flexibility than the older generation. I think that you touched on entitlement earlier. I don't know if it's just parenting. I think technology's had a huge influence on that as well, and how everything's instant gratification, and we have supercomputers in our pockets. So I've had to adapt a lot over the last. I've been managing for 10 plus years, so I've seen a lot of changes. And Ed is really accurate when he said about the older 20-somethings, early 30s are very different than the younger 20s as well. So I don't know. I think you have to manage more than you ever used to. It used to be one set of rules for everyone, and now it's you're managing like a soccer team where you manage the different stars differently based on their specific needs.
Mm-hmm.
But
I would
also
say goal
funny story
on that.
And hopefully you get more than one goal a game.
Yeah. I have some Gen X. I have Gen Xers.
Well, I think the sweaters too. The sweater counts too.
There you go. I have Gen Xers, I have millennials, and now we've got a couple of Gen Zs as well. I've heard millennials complaining about the younger folks not having the work ethic that the millennials had. So I think some of these perceptions we have of millennials are just the fact that people are younger than we are, you know, and they've always been the same. I remember being told that my generation was lazy and didn't have the work ethic, you know. So
that's right.
I think some of it is just perspective of age, but you know, some of it's reality and some of it's technology.
I tell that story all the time. I mean, what was the definitive movie of our generation? I'm using our broadly, Stuart, because you're a few years younger than me, but not too many. But I mean, you're Gen X, I'm Gen X, right?
Yeah, the 80s are the greatest decade of movies, for sure.
Damn straight.
And music, but that's beside
also true. But in
music?
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Let's
question. Let's stick with me. We can agree.
60s?
Yeah.
No. But the you know, the movie in the early 90s, all about our generation, was called Slackers, right?
Oh, no one jumped up on that one.
Yeah,
people have forgotten. You know, Gen X.
I was going to say Clueless was probably.
Mean Girls.
No, that was also true. Let me tell you. I just had my mind blown.
Say the Spice Girls movie, but yeah.
I just had my mind blown a second ago. I'm not kidding. This is so funny because you said you manage like your parent where you're what was it, firm, fair, and fun?
Fun, yeah.
And you clearly were a parent later than I was. I had no philosophy of parenting. I was 27 years old. It was what the only F that came up in my world was. That was pretty much. Yeah, that was pretty much the first decade of parenting for me, for sure. Was just I don't know what I'm doing at all.
Yeah. No, in our case,
now that my kids are 22 and 19,
I think that ties into a big thing about entitlement.
Go ahead and say that again.
I think that ties into the idea of entitlement. One of the reasons why people go, oh, the millennials and the younger millennials are snowflakes, is because they have a philosophy of everything, and juggling all that philosophy of everything just takes more brain calories. Mm-hmm. And so, when you're like us and going, we had this kid, now what do? You go, sometimes you ask your mom or you ask some friends, and you go, and they're stressed, but you just kind of roll through life. When you can find any answer on the internet, and it usually means you're doing it wrong, and there's 17 things you ought to be adding to what you do on every single topic, you spend a lot of your time going, I am screwing up every part of my life. And that there is simply a lot more load on people. I was hoping to graduate, have a job, and get married all within 3 weeks after college. Whereas, Robert, your daughter is trying to figure out how she gets in 1.2 billion paid hours so she's a candidate for schooling that would lead to employment.
That's right.
Yep.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
It's far more fun just floating through life. Just going to say.
Right now,
swinging it.
Swing it.
Some of those are in the hospitality industry trying to earn a job. Trying to make money to put themselves through school. And in the past, in my generation, you could work school around your job much more often. Right. And in the hospitality industry, people are like, I don't know what your problem is. My problem is I'm working my life around school. Now, unfortunately, I got to jump in about 5 minutes to another call. But my second son, he's 25, got his master's in a field that's really hard to find a job in. He's living at home. He's gone on 14 job interviews where they flew him out. So it's for his age, for 25, it's hard to get hired in that level. And so he took a job at Target. Seasonal help, wanted to get a little extra money, took a job at Target. They agreed when they hired him that he could take off for an interview, but interviews in his field are about 4 or 5 days. He kept putting in for interviews, and they kept turning him down because it was seasonal. And they didn't have a system where he could talk. It was like getting approved by somebody he never talked to online. And he finally went to his boss, I'm not going to show up on Monday because he literally started at 4, did his shift, and flew out for an interview. So he was reliable. But the system screwed him. The system screwed them out of one of his honest, reliable people. So they don't have him through the rest of the season because they wouldn't let him take off 2 days because the system was set up for an era that hasn't existed for 15 years.
That's right.
Your daughter could never work there, Robert.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Well, Hayden, since you said you do have to run, for the viewers, if they want to learn more about everything that you're about, where can they find you?
Well, assuming my technology works, which I think after today, you all would say that's iffy, dude. Assuming it works, you could go to www.peopledrivenresults.com, or if it's easier to remember, go to mygenerationalcoach.com, and you can find more there. I just created a 7-part video series that I'm giving away free. Short videos, 7 minutes apiece, on how to cut your generational turnover in half. So if that's of interest, I just got those up and online, and just kind of giving them away because that's freaking people out. And then, if you wanted to talk about some specific questions for your organization, you can also just sign up for a quick call there. And it's about 15 to 20 minutes of you talking about what you want, and about 5 minutes of me talking about sales to you. So it's really about you. It's not one of those call me and then I'll work you over. If I can be helpful to you, just call. And if it's helpful, then we can talk about if I can help you more. So I just tell people, it's not only so low key. All my business coaches say you got to sell more, and I say, nah, I really don't.
Well, Hayden, I really appreciate you sliding us in. I know you keep a very hectic schedule, so I do appreciate you making time. And anytime you'd like to come back on the show, we would love to have you.
Oh yes,
this was definitely. Great. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You guys have a great holiday and a great rest of the call. And I will. I'll let you know what my geeky-ish son says about the new Star Wars, because they have detailed opinions about it all.
Excellent.
Awesome. Thanks, Hayden. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, Hayden.
All right,
thank you very much. Bye now.
So I'm going to tell one other funny story. I know the moment has passed, but I'm going to tell it anyway, just because it's so crazy. We're talking about parenting philosophy and everything. I don't know about those of you who had kids, but I know, actually I shouldn't say this. I don't know about Robert specifically, because what happened to my wife and I with our first kid is no longer legal. My oldest daughter was born at 12:26 a.m., right, on January 9th.
That's my birthday. What a great child she must be.
She is a wonderful child. It clearly skips a couple of generations. But she was born at 12:26 a.m. In those days, it was not a legal requirement that you had an overnight stay in a hospital. So my daughter was born at 12:26 a.m., and we left the hospital with our brand new daughter at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the same day.
Wow.
And you talk about being clueless. We were just like, we'd had no sleep, right? We'd been up all night. We have this brand new baby. We were young and just like, what are we how can they let us leave? Yeah. We don't know anything.
Isn't there a class?
The thing that they should do. Yeah, it was crazy. By the time our second daughter was born, they passed a law that it was some part of some healthcare bill or something that you had to have an overnight stay. So my daughter was born on March 24th. We left the hospital on March 25th. But this one, literally, we'd been parents literally for like 15 hours when we left with our child. And we're like...
So can you imagine how it was before you had kids in hospitals and you were like instant parent?
I mean, no.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I really can't, actually.
But
I fully acknowledge that.
Some of the nice things I got...
Generations living in the house at the same time. There's the grandparents.
Some of the nice things I think...
Oh, go ahead.
No, some of the nice things that I think that Hayden pointed out from, again, a hospitality perspective is what I was hearing between the lines on some of this is that we enter in conversations with our own self-persona as to whom we think we are in that conversation. And we have to stop that. We have to be more in tune with the person we're speaking with as to their perception in the relationship and what their potential expectations, not try to prejudge them or try to get ahead of them in the conversation, but to listen from their perspective. And because as he was saying some things like that, I was thinking about one of the most challenging conversations I had when I was in the agency side of things was I had a 21-year-old that was just a real good, hard worker. And at the time we were lean on bonuses and so forth. So I got him a great raise. Yeah. And besides all the other benefits that went on, and he came in to give me his notice after I just gave him the raise. I mean, literally, I gave him the raise that morning, and he walked in the afternoon to say he was leaving. And I'm like, my first reaction is like, do you know how much I had to fight to get this thing? What the fuck are you doing?
Right.
You know?
Right.
And instead, I just calmly kept a calm face, and I says, so why? He says, I believe I was worth more, and I don't think I was rewarded at the level I thought I should be. And I'm sitting, and rather than me try to argue the point, I just kept asking why. And finally, he got down to a point that he had, in his youthful mind, mathematically conceived his value proposition to the company and felt his worth was measured at a certain level, and that raise did not get him at that income.
Yeah.
So then I took that logic and reapplied it back to the metrics of how the business actually works, and rationally brought him down to the level that we raised him to, mathematically.
Right.
Because that was where his mind was. And he walked out going, then I am being paid what I'm worth. Thank you. And walks out, and we're all good. And I'm sitting there going, shit, if I had actually reacted the way I normally would react, I would have been like, you lost the. But instead, if you just give it a moment to try to figure out from the other side. And, running hotels, you have people walk in the office all the time. And there's a problem that to you is the most irrelevant thing to be talking about, but to them it's the most important thing, and to actually listen. And it goes into the customer experience as well. Sometimes customers come to you and they're mad about warm water. And you're like, really? But rather than reacting, you try to transpose yourself into their perspective and at least get to the point of why that is that it's important to them, and listen to the process. So
I had a client that was complaining about guests. It was a very high-end hotel, and they had guests complaining because the toilet roll was on the wrong way. So instead of folding out over, it was folding back. And they refused to do anything about it. They were saying, these people are stupid. Why do they care? I'm like, it doesn't matter why they care. They're your guests. If they want it out, make it out. It doesn't hurt you. Just do it.
Well, it's funny. One of the things that I say a lot, this is something I use at a talk I give. When I talk to clients, I do it a slightly different way. It's less cold. It's less harsh. But the most dangerous words in any manager's vocabulary, in any owner's vocabulary, and in business person's vocabulary, back in my day.
Oh,
what day do you think it is?
Right.
Did the internet exist back in your day? Well, then back in your day.
Right. I mean, if you find yourself, though, saying back in my day, then it's time for you to get out. Because today.
See, I use it the other way around when young kids, when I'm trying to motivate the young workers, I point out to them when I was their age, I was 3 years into my first startup.
Yeah. See, but you can say that. For those of us who don't have that glorious past, like when I was your age, I was
because I'm unemployable.
I was still flipping burgers.
You know why he had a startup, right? Because he got fired from every job he ever had.
That's right. I'm unemployable. That's why I had to start my own business.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking about in our day with the internet, as of yesterday, I got to start putting out a contribution box. I think I'm going to have to start paying for our bandwidth, because with the net neutrality going poof for a while. Come on, I just had to throw it because it is that giant thing.
Come on, guys,
Robert, we had it on the call.
Deal?
Oh yeah.
I mean, the cable companies have done a great job packaging our access to television. Why do you think they're going to not do a good job packaging our access to the internet?
I know.
I don't understand what the big deal is. I get 196 channels, of which I watch 2. I mean,
exactly.
I do have to say though that we had this as a topic. Right. But there's already too much there already. There's already too much there.
I have one major problem with this, a huge problem with this. I am not all about regulations. I'm not all about all that stuff. I mean, let's let the market decide, right? 55% of the country lives in a place where you have exactly one option for where you get your internet.
That's me.
Yep. Me too. By the way, the market cannot decide if there is no market.
Right.
Luckily, around the corner is 5G.
Yes.
And 5G will make it
that will help.
Where everyone in the market has 6 or 7 choices.
No, you're right.
Luckily, we're not. If this was 5 years ago, I think the net neutrality thing would have been incredibly apocalyptic. I think it will be very bad, and it's going to be very messy. And oh, by the way, if you were hoping for IPTV to continue growing at the pace it is, forget it. That's over. Yeah. IP television is whoever's not already massive, they're gone. So there will be no more upstarts in IPTV. because those are the only companies who are going to be able to afford to get the priority bandwidth into their service packs. So Netflix is pissed because now Netflix is going to have to start paying for network, and then they're going to have to work that into.
Well, they're going to let's state that differently. They're going to have to start paying multiple times for network. It's not like Netflix is not already paying for carriage.
Yep. No, I know. I mean,
that's one of the things
that
people miss.
But okay, I think.
But I will say, like, Netflix will survive.
Of course they will.
DirecTV Now will survive. There will just be no one. There will be no one else.
But anyone else who's trying to break in and do something really cool,
right?
Yeah, they're going to be blocked. Well, okay, so I got into and it is so amazing when you see people, especially on Facebook, who think, hey, that's a reasonable I mean, just going all in this net neutrality thing, it's nothing. It's, getting rid of the regulations. This is going to spur innovation. And it's like, what planet
were these people inside the hospitality industry?
Oh, yeah. A former CEO.
CEO. I'm always looking for new customers.
Former CEO of tech-related company. I mean, astounding.
Yeah, but they were in the hospitality industry.
Yeah, I don't know, but anyway, yeah. I'll go through. I gave them 7 examples, right? Because what did they do? Oh, what did they say? Their rationale was, they did how did it get so big without the thing? And in the last 2 years, I failed to see where the net improved. So I went back and said,
really?
Oh yeah. No. And this is a guy who's, graduate degree, has been CEO of probably 2 or 3 different hospitality tech companies. I know the guy, and I'm like, and I answered. I said,
is he also a leading flat earther? I'm just curious.
I was going to say, he's
asking for a friend.
Was he wearing his Make America Great hat at the time?
He is not. But I literally answered. I went, come on, seriously? I mean, because it's just like,
which, by the way, I love when you do it on Facebook. They crack me up.
Yeah. So anyway, I gave him 7 examples. Okay, 2001, Microsoft versus Netscape. Now, this wasn't net neutrality. This was antitrust. But Microsoft tried to kill Netscape, or everybody.
By the way, today is the 23rd anniversary of the launch of Netscape.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Internet Explorer somehow is still around for some reason.
Yeah, but what they did was they wound up preferencing speed-wise everything it was the operating system. It wasn't the ISP, but the operating system preferenced their browser. That was bad. That was struck down. Then 2004, Madison River Communications, a little ISP in North Carolina, blocked voice over IP traffic because they blocked Vonage because they sold their own telephone service. That isn't a very good thing. Then 2007, Verizon versus, I think it was NARL, Pro-Choice America. They blocked pro-choice text messaging. That's not good.
And by the way, why did all these things end? Just for clarity, why did these end? Because the FCC threatened them all with changing them to Title II, which is what they ended up doing in 2015.
Exactly. Right. 2008, Verizon and Google. Verizon had Google pull off a dozen apps out of the App Store for tethering, right? Because you had to buy a special package to tether your phone, that sort of thing. 2008, Comcast versus BitTorrent. They blocked all torrent traffic. And they're like, oh, well, that it can be piracy. It's like, it can be, but there can be other stuff too.
Right.
So 2008
just piracy.
Well, no, but in the names Verizon.
Well, sure,
Verizon
BitTorrent. I'll give you the BitTorrent one, but
okay.
Comcast, it was either piracy or viruses. I mean, that's all that there was on BitTorrent.
Here's the classic one. Comcast basically they established a 250 gig monthly data cap.
Yeah.
But then worked out a deal with Microsoft with Xbox where that didn't apply, right? So they kind of, work together on a
wireless does it with DirecTV Now. It doesn't count against your data usage.
That's right.
Right. Yeah.
And now T-Mobile's doing it with Netflix. I mean, listen, well, and here's the thing. It now makes, I don't know if you saw the announcement that T-Mobile bought some random television company. Yeah. It makes that make a ton of sense, because if you actually read why the IP was interesting on that television company, is it was a closed private network.
Right.
Fiber network.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing.
Oh, but wait, sorry, one last one. AT&T versus Apple. AT&T blocked Apple FaceTime traffic.
Right.
So all those things happen, and then my point on net neutrality is 2015, all they did was they codified it, right? They just said, you know what? All these things
doing all along.
Yeah, this is how it's been doing, and you can't do this crap, and that is what was undone. And you look at the players, AT&T, Comcast, Verizon.
But Comcast was saying they were pro net neutrality
until they changed their page. Yeah, they took it off when the thing went.
Because they didn't have to.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, right? The people who get hurt by this the most, look, Amazon's got the money to pay what's necessary to pay, and they have enough customers that they can pass it along to their customers without jacking up the prices. Expedia has the money to pay what they're going to need to pay, or can pass the cost along to their customers without jacking up the price too much. Right. Google has the money to pay what they need to pay, or can pass along the cost without jacking up the price too much, etc. Right? The people who are harmed by this, if you're an independent hotel, right, and suddenly people can't get to your site as quickly as they can get to Expedia.com, for instance.
Well, hold on.
No. That could totally happen.
No. But I want to point out that already exists. It's just going to get worse.
Well, it already exists today. It already exists today because a lot of hotels aren't doing what they should be doing.
Right. But
the point is, it could easily get unaffordable for you under the way this is all.
But there's a way around it. There's a way around it. And it makes two of the biggest companies in the world even more powerful, which is if you set up your environment inside of one of the major clouds, truly inside of one of the major clouds, you will be unaffected by net neutrality. So if you are like...
Well, no, that's not true. That's not necessarily true, because...
depending on how you're using the cloud. If you're using the cloud as a hosting type scenario, yes, it's not true. If you are truly in the services, so Flip2 is a true Azure platform. Yeah. Like we're Azure SQL, Azure, like we're in Azure. We're on Microsoft's bandwidth. Like you can't tell the difference between us and Xbox.
No, I understand. And I'm saying Comcast could easily cut a deal with Google and with Amazon that makes them faster and Microsoft slower. So you are absolutely as vulnerable to this as anybody.
But again, let's go back to the old days and what you had to do. So any of you who had tech companies back in the days where you actually had to have server farms all over the globe to serve regions, you may have to go back to that, but on clouds. So you may need to be on Amazon.
Which raises your cost, is what I'm saying. Right. Yeah. I mean, my point here is this is bad for smaller companies. It's bad for everybody, really.
It's bad for everybody.
And to your point about 5G, when we have true mobile bandwidth, because one of the problems with mobile today isn't that the bandwidth is bad, it's that you can't stream on it, right? Because of data caps and things along those lines. Right. So if we come to a point where 5G is widely accepted, which probably is not before 2020 or 2021, realistically.
Agree. Outside of major cities, agree.
Outside of major cities, right. I mean, you're not going to see mass adoption of this for a good 3 or 4 years.
Which is ironic. These states where the populations were that made this happen are the last ones who will get the fix.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Oh yeah,
you get what I deserve.
But my point here being is, if in fact we had a viable market for telecom services across the board, I would be absolutely more open on this net neutrality thing.
Yep.
We don't have a functioning market. That is the core of this. Right.
I don't mean to pick on the Digital Council's call yesterday, but Robert, did you
celebrating the end of net neutrality?
No. Just there was a bit of a surprise.
I wouldn't be overly surprised. Sorry.
Well, they there was a bit of a surprise feel that this, as we're talking about net neutrality's complications and problems, I got the impression from some of the feedback as the conversation was going forward that some people really hadn't thought about the impact at that level.
Oh no.
Of what it
sure.
And you found that surprising?
I had hoped it would be unwillingly a shocker, but it was one of these things when you start talking about, like you just mentioned, Expedia's, they get speeded up and you get slowed down. You may not have your information exposed because you just don't pay for the availability. You're not on the package that somebody's now having to pay for and whatever. They didn't really think about those type of ramifications at the level that it was engaging them. They may just look at it and say, this is a bad thing because everybody says it's a bad thing. But when they started thinking about what we were talking about on the net neutrality, a lot of the questions or comments seemed like they were rather surprised that this was.
You know who it's going to hurt the most? Hilton and Marriott.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree.
Because the traffic that they get, like, versus the traffic Expedia gets, Expedia is going to be able to afford because they're just going to pass it on. Hilton Marriott won't be able to, and it's going to further slow down their experiences. Like, this is
and they're big enough to be on somebody's radar to be worth throttling or pushing to a slow lane.
Right.
Well, no, but you also don't think of it that way, because here's actually how it will start. It will start where they're big enough that the Comcast is going to go, hey, Marriott, how would you like us to make you a little bit faster?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
No, we're okay. We're fine. Okay, cool. Expedia, how would you like us to make you faster? Oh, yeah, we'd like that.
Yeah.
Could you make it a second per page load faster? Yeah, we could do that.
Exactly the conversation we had.
We can't make you faster, so we'll just make everyone else slower.
Right.
And
we had exactly this conversation. It's like 1 second
load faster, and you'll get a higher conversion rate than Marriott will. Congratulations.
Cost per second.
We
even talked about cost per second. Cost per second.
For the audience, that's a point worth calling out. I don't remember the number off the top of my head. I used to be able to cite it chapter and verse, but it's been a while. What does 1 second do to conversion rate? I know a ton. Does anybody know the actual number?
It's like 20-something%.
It's like 20-something%.
After the 4.5 second mark.
It's not 4.5 seconds anymore.
No.
It's like half that.
It's like 2.5, almost 3 seconds.
Is it down to, okay.
Yeah.
You're right. It has been a while. But we also talk about from the marketing perspective. Here we have the ability to pick and choose our marketing strategies. Now, potentially, we have you want the Northwestern package.
That's right.
You want to target those people. Yes. Well, that's going to cost you this much to get that channel. You want the Southern package. Demographic. And we're mentioning this is like, the service providers know more about us than even Google and others because they're feeding us. They're the top of the funnel of all this progress. So our information with them is much more relevant and much more sliceable than even the Googles are
relied on. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm very disappointed it went the way it did, number one. And I think it says everything about politics in this country right now. And I don't like to get political. I don't really have an opinion. I'm kind of in the middle, but it was interesting the vote went down party lines. And well, Europe has some of these challenges already. Like you look at the bandwidth. Like my parents pay for bandwidth; they get a certain amount of megabytes per month of high speed, and then it drops them down. This is in their home, their home network. That's coming to this country. So as a consumer, it really pisses me off. As a marketer, it really pisses me off. There's just not a lot we can do about it right now. That wait and see, and you
can learn from it. And vote with the experience.
But that wouldn't have made any difference because the lobbyists would have lobbied whoever was in power at the time and given them whatever gifts they gave,
83% polled are against this. The public is against this.
If this was a referendum, if people were allowed to vote, it would never have gone through. But the 3 people that were bought, allegedly, they voted the way they're
the guy was a former Verizon lobbyist who's the head of that.
We can't give up. I'm not saying that.
I mean, the bottom line is if the excuse is that this country is run by the largest companies in the world, I mean, that's actually always been the case. The companies have changed.
Well, it's worse. It is worse now. Post Citizens United, it is worse now, though, because now it really is direct investment, right? Because, it's really obvious, and that's why this tax thing's going through like this.
Well,
I mean, it is
let's pull back from
it's do it now.
The politics side for a second, because the reality is this has business impacts. You are a business owner. If you're a listener, of the show, watcher of the show, you have, you're a congressperson. Congress could still pass a law to change what the rules are. This was an administrative ruling. They could absolutely change the law.
Yeah, definitely.
And let's hope you'll get as mad about this as they did about players kneeling in the NFL because, man, consumers actually stepped up and stopped doing business. The next thing you know, I
like the list that are being
reporting down quarters because of it. So let's do that. Let's make this a kneeling moment. And let's get Congress to put in some reasonable rules on how bandwidth is managed.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think it's also a good time to step back as marketers, especially if you're an independent hotel, and look at where it could go, but what can I do now to speed up my site? What can I do to reduce the crap that is loading on my site? Can I offload stuff on a CDN? Can I put it in the cloud? Like, there are things you can do to make your current situation better. So focus on that stuff because you can actually have an impact.
And even for the smallest guys, things like Cloudflare and stuff like that
Cloudflare is so good
dramatically, right? Yeah. It's not expensive. It works well. It's easy. It's pretty easy. Just on your default settings. It's
Yeah, it even goes a little farther in the sense that oftentimes web development has been tossed over either to tech or not even tossed to anybody, and just you bring an outside source, they do whatever they want to do. And I say this from experience of cleaning up behind developments of companies that have been built for, and you go in there and you're like, what the F were you thinking with this site structure? There's no folder for that. There's no geo folder. There's no, and if you don't know what I'm saying, those are the questions you need to be asking your developers as you're building the website. Like, so what does that do for me? And if somebody's looking in this region and I want to market to that region, how would they find me in my website? And ask as simple of a question as you can possibly come up from a user experience, but make them be accountable to tell you this stuff. Because if you don't ask those questions, or you're held back thinking that, oh, I should know the answer already, so I'm not going to ask the question, you're going to get stuck.
And I'll just tell you right now, if their answer is that their custom-built CMS takes care of that for you,
then run.
Run.
That they own, that you paid for, but they own those proprietary ones
and proprietary platforms. Oh,
you said a magic word a moment ago, though, and I'm going to do something vaguely self-promotional, but that wouldn't be new. I wrote
go straight up. Go straight up.
I wrote an article for Hotel Executive that'll come out in January that gets to, you said the magic word a moment ago, right? Which is, what's your guest experience? You know, a lot of this is around every touch point that a guest has with your property, whether it's on property, whether it's on mobile, whether it's on, desktop web, whether it's on an app, whether it's, the email that you send them after the fact, it doesn't matter. That's all part of how guests experience your brand, your property. Right. And, if they walked up to your front desk and, your front desk person just sat there and kind of stared at them and didn't say hi or didn't actually engage with them or things, and they stood there and they stood there and they stood there, eventually people are going to think your property sucks.
Right? Or they do nothing. You say, go outside and come in again.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's the other door at the other end of the building. This door is for this thing. You got to go to the other door over there.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Oh, sorry, you wanted the Hilton lobby, not the Hampton lobby. That's across the hall.
Over that way,
right? Yeah. So, this all of this comes back to, are you giving guests a good experience? Because ultimately, that's how you're going to differentiate yourself, and that's how you're going to win.
I was just going to say, with Hayden, to tie it back into Hayden's thing, that experience, and he said it starts getting more complicated because it isn't one size fits all. And he's looking at it generationally, but you also have to look at it culturally too. I mean, having worked with a company that was Japanese owned, having worked one which was Israeli owned, really, really different approaches to business.
I thought you only worked with ones that were Canadian owned.
Oh, and Canadian too. Worked for two Canadian companies.
So this actually leads me into a segue I've been waiting for us to be able to get to, because we pick on Hilton and Marriott a lot because they are two of the more powerful hotel brands in the world, and they have large footprints, and it's easy to see what they do wrong. We can talk about something Hilton has gotten right. And how do I know they got it right? Because they agree with me, which is their whole movement. Their whole movement on expanding their app to be able to control the smart devices in a room, or also known as bring your own device.
I told you he missed our Stuart. Didn't we say he's going to want to come back to this because he wasn't here when we first talked about it? We knew it. We knew it.
and look, they did it pretty easily. They did it what I think is the best way they could have done it. And it answered all the things Stuart said he wanted. Because he wanted to be able to lay in his bed and turn, a light on and, adjust something else.
Change the AC,
Change the AC without having to move much.
Yeah.
They did it without having to buy.
Where they can let themselves in to the room and serve him, and then so he doesn't have to.
But they did it where they didn't have to buy a bunch of knockoff Android device blanks
tablets
in the room. Because, by the way, the other reason for bring your own device is do you guys like touching the remote controls inside a hotel room?
I've never touched
voice control.
Right. So, do you want to touch a glass surface inside of a hotel room?
That's implying that they actually charge the battery before you get there, because any of appliances that they throw into rooms.
But kudos to Hilton on actually thinking through what is this telling us, and then actually creating a solution that seems to fundamentally answer the core problem without too much of the flash.
Now, am I right that they haven't rolled this out yet? They just kind of announced it.
They announced it.
I think they might have one. They might have one property. I think they might have one property.
I was going to give them all the credit because
I think Dallas is going to be the second one. I think.
Well, I think they watched this show. And after watching it and hearing my impassioned talk about bring your own device, they announced it shortly after that.
Well, that's clearly what it was, right?
And the amazing thing was, Ed was the only one who said that. Nobody else.
No one else has ever said that
idea.
I know that Ed must be right, though, because I agree with him 100% as well. And I'm sitting here kicking myself. Actually, I wish I hadn't written that article because they did exactly what I described. I will tell you what they have to fix, though. I had 2 travel experiences in the last couple of weeks that get precisely to what you're talking about. First was the I'm going to diss a non-Hilton property. I was in a select service chain. I won't say who. I'll be nice. And they had a remote control in the room that literally was made of some like different material or whatever, and was labeled as being like super hygienic and antibacterial, which actually made me want to touch it less.
Exactly.
Because it actually called out like
because this remote now,
the person before.
It's also going to cause cancer. So enjoy.
No, this guest before who really wanted to disprove that claim.
I was just like, I don't know, man. But I had I was in a Hilton property. I was in an Embassy Suites, but I was in a Hilton family. And
probably the best brand inside the Hilton family.
Oh yeah,
but I'll tell you, I love Embassy Suites. In my family, it's the first brand. Embassy Suites was where Tammy got her start many years ago. But they got one thing incredibly wrong. Literally no outlets anywhere near the bed. Anywhere near the bed. And like one free outlet anywhere in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I was like
next to the sink.
It was one of those. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, you know what I do to those hotels to show them how that upsets me?
You unplug everything.
Oh, I
unplug everything.
Yeah. And I wasn't doing it to be a jerk. Because of the nature of this trip, I had like 4 different devices with me that needed to be plugged in. So I was like, this is ridiculous. And I unplugged everything and did not plug them back in.
See, Lauren has figured it out. Lauren travels with a power strip.
Actually, I do.
Like a 10 outlet power strip.
That's pretty smart.
Actually,
no.
I got a power strip and I got a multi USB plug I plug into it. So for that one outlet that's
smart,
on the bed.
Yeah,
I got that set up because I bring enough technology to dim the lights.
But I gotta tell you, I turned into George Clooney and up in the air. Like I'm all about how do you reduce weight all over the place. Well, everywhere but here.
Yeah.
So
okay. Let's be fair. There is only one reason Stuart came on the show today.
Yes.
In fact, he had to reschedule.
Star Wars?
He had to reschedule an important client meeting.
Right.
Wait, can I ask one question? I know I showed up a little late, so we may be retreading ground. Has anyone besides me seen the movie yet?
Stuart has.
Stuart has.
So Stuart came on to purposefully ruin the movie for anyone who watches this show and hasn't seen it.
I'm only going to say one spoiler. Darth Vader.
No.
I appreciate the fact that Stuart is staying in frame, that he's leaving his TIE Fighter and X-Wing still in frame. He's shifted himself correctly so that he can keep the sweater and the appropriate background.
Telecaster and my
listen, Stuart's happy and Stuart's excited, but this week was far more exciting for me because Disney finally unlocked the keys.
Oh yeah.
To the majority of Marvel's really good characters, and that means we will see
possibly. You've got to wait.
Avengers.
You've got to wait 18 months for this to clear all the government regulation before
the next Avengers movie that the storyline hasn't been written for is like when I'm 45 anyway. So but it does mean there will be an Avengers movie with the Fantastic Four and the X-Men in it, as it was meant to be.
I actually am very much looking forward to getting the Fantastic Four right on film.
Yeah, they've yet to do that. They've yet to do that. Yeah, they haven't done that yet.
Yeah, but anyway, guys, I just noticed the time.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, happy birthday, my friend.
Oh, by the way, happy birthday, my friend.
Yeah, that's birthday. Oh, did you get my voicemail, Tim?
I did. Oh my God, I completely forgot about that. I absolutely got your voicemail. Wait. I'm doing it. Hold on one second.
You're doing it. All right. This is okay. Fine.
Hold on. Everyone should get to delight in this. Hold on. Ready?
I try to customize it for Tim. It just seems if I can make it work.
The hell, it won't play the damn message.
You might if only he had an Android.
No. Actually, the problem is I use Google Voice, so I can't get the voicemail off Google Voice.
I tailored it to a Christmas theme this year, so
I'm going to guess it was short and sweet.
No, it was long and winded. It was long and winded.
So Stuart, tell us you loved the movie.
I'm such a nerd, man. My brain has all kinds of thoughts. It was very good. I need to watch it like 4 more times to figure out where it falls.
Did you read your email from my source on how he felt about the movie?
I didn't read that yet. No,
but I want you to go ahead and read it out loud.
I don't know about that.
Just go ahead. There's nothing profane in it.
Go ahead. I'll let you read it. How about that?
I don't have it. Okay. But I know you have it in your inbox.
You said your friend said that it was the worst Star Wars movie ever, right? And there's more narrative to that.
I want you to read the email.
Oh, that's not true. That's nowhere near true.
There's no way. I'm going to delete the email without reading it.
I want you to read it. No, because it's really funny. I want you to read it.
Nonetheless, Tim. I unfortunately have to go.
And if people want to know more about you, Tim, I know you write things from time to time, maybe once in a while, Blue Moon, and once in a while have a podcast,
don't you?
Yeah,
you index the internet, don't you? There's a site you have that has most of the content on the internet.
Now he's going to screw up our ability to read his blog posts.
No, Tim has already negotiated content deals with everyone, so he that will be the first thing you see when you turn on your computer.
One of the TimPeter.com. Yeah,
yes,
the Tim Peter page.
Really good ideas, actually. I should do that.
Mr. Tim, where can people find your podcast? Which is an excellent podcast and blog and everything.
You can find everything at TimPeter.com. Very straightforward.
He's not kidding. You can buy cars.
You literally find everything.
Get stock picks.
Yep.
And might I say,
I would like
the dark web is on there.
I would like to point out to just I have no problem with the ribbing whatsoever, but this is one of the advantages of not being a child, Ed, is I've just been doing it for a long time, right? Like some of this has been around.
Stuff piles up.
I owned a domain years ago, and I'm terribly embarrassed to admit I let it lapse because I never used it for anything. But I used to own the domain that was based on a joke a friend of mine had that was internettool.com.
Oh my God!
And that was actually a domain I owned.
You probably could have sold that for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I probably could have sold it for something at some point, but
now you're just an internet tool.
And that was actually where the joke was. Something came up, and I was like, "Oh, he said something about an internet tool," and I was like, "Funny enough, that's what everybody calls me."
The internet tool. But
actually, I got one thing before you leave, Tim, just to piss off all the Star Wars fans, because you youngsters, I skipped out of like the last couple periods of high school on a Friday, the day that Star Wars launched, and saw it on the first in Seattle, which was actually a couple days after. Yeah, or the following week, so it wasn't actually its first showing.
The first week. It was first week. I was a child. I was very small.
I was not alive.
The amazing thing was we did not know.
You weren't alive?
Yeah, New Hope was 78, right?
77.
77.
All right, so I wasn't alive for 2 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was 3 months old when it came out, I think.
Wow.
So you give me crap for how much younger I am than you. I am much younger than you.
I was in high school.
No, I was in grade school. I was like 8 or something like that. I was
in high school.
I was actually. I've always argued I was exactly the right ages for the first 3 movies. Because I was 8 when the first one came out. I was about 11 when the second one came out, and I was about.
I was a senior in high school. It was perfect for that age. I mean, we didn't know. Nobody knew what to expect. All you heard was
wow.
Yeah, but the whole
as a college senior, Robert found it perfect for his age.
I think
as he was wrapping up his PhD.
For that movie,
is there a wrong age for Star Wars? I mean, really,
no,
is there a wrong age?
It just went across everything.
Which it did. Well, because what people don't remember in today's media environment and in today's movie environment was literally there had been nothing like this before.
Right,
I mean,
there were no special effects like this. I mean,
there were no special effects like this. There were no blockbuster films.
Strong female characters
like this.
Yeah.
Right.
Trailers.
There were no trailers. Right.
Because none of the stuff. All you heard was, "You've got to see this."
Oh yeah.
That was it. Yeah, it was the word of mouth. It's like, why? It's amazing. Yeah.
Picture an 8-year-old kid sitting in a movie theater with that opening shot of the biggest ship in history coming over the front. Like, I just sat there like, wow! They had me at hello.
If you think about it, there have been movies that have done that since, and then have failed miserably. So what's actually more impressive is not only did it do that, it's now in its 8th chapter.
Right.
Because, let's think about it. The first Matrix.
40th year.
Think about the first Matrix. What that did to you.
Oh, yeah.
The Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
a big one. Do you remember The Day After Tomorrow?
Yeah.
I think no, but you got to think about that was kind of the real first look at the Earth changing in a way that didn't just destroy the Earth. I mean, that's always been a storyline. It actually just permanently changed reality. I Am Legend, I think, was like that for me, from a storyline that was before the big zombie craziness came out. It was a different look at it. It had a very different feel.
By the way, you know who got it right? The other big franchise that got it right, as far as I'm concerned, Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park. Yeah. Yes, that was
that was the other one.
That was a new idea.
Was really good. Yeah.
But the interesting, and I can't remember, I think there's I think it's a YouTube video. I can't remember who produced. I should go find it. There's a really interesting thing talking about the formation. It was the little cabal of Lucas, Spielberg, Coppola, De Palma, and Scorsese, who were all buddies doing
the young guns of Hollywood.
And Lucas,
you can rattle off movies that have that kind of impact, like The Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Wrath of Khan. There's movies like that changed your perception.
The Raiders of the Lost Ark, where the main character of the story had zero impact on the outcome of the movie.
But the genre of the type of movie was a shift of that quasi-humorous, situational, but dramatic play to it. It was, I like that.
But Lucas, the whole scroll thing at the beginning of Star, right? That wasn't his idea. That was De Palma's idea, because De Palma saw the movie and said, "It sucks. He's like, what the hell's going on? Nobody knows where this is. There's no you need to like tell people what's happening. And I think he even came up with the idea for this. Well, just like go do something like that.
I'm sorry. So Stuart, Tim, I know you're going to go, but Stuart, I want you to read that email so people.
All right, before Tim goes, I'm going to duck out before he reads the email. So
Tim, before you go, I just want to make sure people understand that for those who are watching the show and listening and so forth, is that really genuinely for continuity of content, consistency of bringing things to the forefront, Tim's blog and podcast on a weekly basis is outstanding.
Yes.
And I say that from the podcast perspective, especially.
It is the polar opposite of this show.
It is. It's concise.
Exactly.
It's concise to the point. It's 15
We're
to
trying
20
to cover
minute
the
podcast.
full spectrum. Yes,
right.
Exactly.
Tim brings it down to a very specific point. He gets very much to it, and it's 20 minutes long. It's a quick listen, but it's a very insightful listen. And Tim, I can't compliment you enough on it. Truly, I do listen to that as well as
thank you very much. That's very kind of you to say. I appreciate that.
Genuinely one of the best podcasts out there for content when it comes to
I don't like this. I like when you guys rip on me. This getting compliments, I'm very uncomfortable with.
Well, we were fairly certain you weren't the one who came up with any of the content. We're pretty sure it's Tammy.
Yeah, we know the brains behind the operation.
I mean, that I can live with. That's much better.
You're just the face to it, but Tammy's the real mind behind it. But yeah, we appreciate that.
Absolutely. Like, Tim, you should tell them about.
Well, there's a reason I do a podcast, and it's very simple, which was once upon a time somebody once told me I had a face made for radio. So, with that, great seeing you guys. I do have to run. I will be back next week, so I won't say happy holidays yet. Unless you're enjoying Hanukkah, in which case, happy Hanukkah to those of you.
Yes, happy Hanukkah to all those.
And Festivus for the rest of us.
Absolutely.
So do you see how Stuart's gone out of screen? It's because he's not
I'm looking at my other screen. Sorry. Where my email is.
You read the email.
Thank you very much.
Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend. See you next week.
Bye, Tim. Thanks, see ya. Where is this email? Who's it from? Is it from you?
Ricky from Ricky.
Oh, it's from Ricky. Okay. I was looking at you. Did you see it?
Yeah, he saw it.
So, Lauren, I thought there were some very interesting news topics. One in particular, which was
becoming a platform.
Oh yeah, I think even more interesting for Lauren was Safari's new intelligent tracking prevention.
Yes.
Yeah,
I didn't.
I
think it's amazing.
Oh, and it killed Criteo. I mean, they're in there. They're having serious.
Yes.
Here's Seth, the other part of the brain.
I do have to say the best thing that happened today was your other cat tapping you on the shoulder. That was
that's Kelso. Yeah, that was Kelso.
That was amazing.
Yeah, you wanted to talk about
why I think it's
multi-species. Yeah.
Why I think it's amazing that Safari is doing this is because it will get rid of a lot of the garbage marketing tactics that are happening in marketing that give marketing a bad name. Mm-hmm. It's the end of just a lot of garbage. Ad retargeting is almost over. Oh my gosh, thank God ad retargeting is almost gone. Like, the banner ad crap. Like, thank God.
I think a term that I've come to despise in the past 2 weeks most out of anything right now is targeting by view.
Yes.
Because attribution is the other key word that usually gets thrown around more than it should for reasons that people most don't understand.
But crap like this will actually make attribution easier.
Right. Because you start setting campaigns based on view in addition to click-through, you're getting free credit for everything. Because all you're saying is, and I try to explain this to people, it's like if you put a billboard up on the side of an interstate that drives to where your hotel is at, you are now saying via view attribution that everybody does business with you because of that billboard, just because they drove by it, whether they saw it or
you're straight up saying that every time you open your fridge, you see your ketchup bottle.
Yeah,
that's right. Exactly.
I mean,
that's another good one.
Let's face it, you can't even find it when you're looking for it. And it's in your fridge. And this eliminates that.
Usually it's the last beer can. Usually it's the last beer can.
You see that other sock every time you open your dryer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
I agree with you guys. ITP is great for good marketers. It's going to make it more difficult for shitty marketers because, like you said, the display marketing, especially programmatic, which does not work in most cases in the hospitality industry, it's really terrible. terrible attribution modeling. It's going to make that really hard to do, and it already doesn't work. It's just going to make it harder for them to tell you that it works when it doesn't, so it's fine. If you're connecting, there are a couple of things you do need to do, right? So one, you need to make sure you're connecting your AdWords account and your Google Analytics account, because Google Analytics is first-party cookie.
Yep.
AdWords is third-party cookie, but if you connect the two, then Google can store your click information as a first-party cookie using Google Analytics. So if you connect the two,
excellent point.
If you connect the two, you don't have any problems. You're going to be able to track stuff. The other thing to keep in mind is campaign ID track everything you can, because you're not going to be able to rely on the third-party tracking pixels anymore to tell you whether or not someone's gone back and done something that interacted with their ad. So make sure you're campaign tracking everything in Google Analytics.
I'm just going to say this again. Like, I love that Apple is meddling in this, and I love that Google's starting to meddle in these types of things as well, because they're doing it because shitty marketers have ruined a lot of internet experiences.
Exactly.
And so,
well, to be fair, shitty marketers and shitty vendors who sell wares that don't work but use false metrics
look really good.
Oh yeah, you start doing that kind of viewing and so forth, and you take credit for sunshine. I mean, you're basically saying I made the sunrise and the rain fall, and you didn't. You had no effect because
Ed
did. Yeah, what? Yeah. But you have to bring them all the way back up to
I like this persona I'm developing on this show.
That's right.
Do you have Niven and Noel?
Yes.
No, did anybody see Ed's high school yearbook where his goal was to be deified? I thought that was really pretty.
Pretty accurate. And I'm sorry, again, I do not want us to get off this topic. Stuart, I know you found the email.
I did find the email. And
I'd like you to read this review of Star Wars.
Ricky and I are good friends.
Spoilers?
But we might.
There are no spoilers.
There are no spoilers.
There are no spoilers? Okay.
Well,
zero spoilers. Unless
it's
you
going to
didn't know
spoil
that Ryan
Stuart's
Johnson.
day, but
No, it's destroyed our friendship with Ricky for sure.
Yeah.
Ricky's a hardcore Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
And this is how him and Stuart became
So
friends.
he emailed me this morning and said, "Had you seen it?" And I said, "Yes, you." And he wrote back and said, "This is, I quote, and don't ever use this as if this was me saying this, because this is Ricky Dunbar. It's terrible." He said, "Yes, I snagged a last-minute ticket last night. Worst Star Wars movie I've ever seen, and one of the worst movies I've ever paid money to see. Ryan Johnson should not be allowed to touch the franchise again, and his children should be prohibited from permabanned from all future Star Wars related activities, including buying the toys or even playing with them with their friends."
Wow.
Yeah.
He liked it.
Dude, I could not disagree more. He's wrong. He's usually right on a lot of things, but he's very wrong.
Well, we'll know as soon as I get to see it.
This is true.
We'll have
the actual opinion will come out tomorrow.
So this year, basically, you're saying that one becomes a better friend and the other one becomes a lesser friend, depending upon how you walk out of the theater.
No. No.
Everyone's entitled to their opinion.
I'll just tell you which one's right.
Right, and the other one will have to bend to his, his will. That's right.
That's all it is.
I use up all my flexibility in managing employees. Everywhere else, I'm rigid. You bend to me.
That's funny. It's
I'll be honest. Ricky tends to feel that way about a lot of movies. He's very picky on what makes a good movie. Because I'll tell you, like.
So, what movie does he like? What type of movie does he like?
Because I pushed him. So we were in Vegas for Expedia. That's why I wasn't here last week. And on the flight home, I pushed him to watch Doctor Strange, because I personally believe Doctor Strange is the pinnacle of the Marvel universe being turned into a movie. I think it's the best one they've done. And I wanted him to watch it because I actually know what he likes in movies and stuff, and I wanted to see if I was right. And he came at the end of the flight. He was like, "Holy crap! I mean, this is the best movie they've made." And I do believe like they nailed Doctor Strange, which is if you can nail Doctor Strange, you can make a movie about.
I wouldn't say it's the best movie they've made, but I think it was the most impressive in that they took a character that very few people knew and
I knew about. They don't understand them, right?
Super cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yes, no, Stuart, I was poking fun. I'm sure it's a great movie. I'm actually really excited to see it.
I just saw Holly's comment.
I'm going to call Ricky now.
I just saw Holly's comment. Did you see Holly's comment? Best Ed line ever. We'll know the answer when I see it.
It's funny because
awesome. That's so true, Holly. Yeah. That is so
Listen,
true.
I'm just so sad for all of you guys that you don't exist when we're not on this show.
That's right,
because you're great guys. I enjoy our time together, and it's sad that you don't exist when we're not together.
That's right.
You know, it's like the Truman Show, right? We're just all actors in the world of you.
Yeah,
that's it. That's all. Yeah, it's quantum theory. If it's not measured, if it's not what the perceived, it's not real.
You are all Schrodinger's cat.
We both exist and don't.
Until next Friday. Yes, we didn't get to a lot of the topics, but we had a great conversation with Hayden. And Ed, thanks again for finally getting him to.
Cool, right? Like,
yeah,
I like his.
Go watch his TED talk. I think it's in his email signature. We should post that because it's a really good. It goes into a lot of what he talked about, but then goes into more as well. It's really good.
Yeah. I mean, he spoke for 3 hours at the benchmark. So it was 3 hours.
Wow,
and not a single person got up.
Wow,
yeah, that's when you have a good speaker, when they can be that person that everyone's engaged with and has a reason.
And he says the word thong a lot.
Wow.
Thong.
Yes.
No, I was going to have on
my show that you're all old. He was talking about the flip flop.
Oh,
yes. And I that's how I saw it. Anyway, we're at a time that it's close to the 2-hour mark. So the topics that we didn't get to will be in the show notes. I will.
Sorry to Matt Damon. We didn't have time to get to you today.
Yeah. Sorry, Matt Damon. Or no, to Holly. Holly, we ran out of time to get you on the show today. We ran out of time. But
actually, sorry, Google DeepMind, who learned to play chess better than any human in 4 hours. Yeah,
yeah,
that's why
better than the programs that were built to play chess.
Oh yes, I know.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's why they sold the robotics division. I'm telling you that they did not sell that because they lost interest in robotics. They sold it to separate it.
Oh yeah.
Did you see that thing that I sent you on Facebook on Messenger, Ed, about those little micro AI quadcopters that go out and just kill people? Just scary stuff. Anyways, I'll send it to you, Robert. I know it sounds very vague, but basically these little AI quadcopters that fly around and then they have a little
explosive device in them, and
so they'll just drop them out of an airplane and target people and wipe out populations without having to drop a bomb. Yeah.
Anyway,
just great stuff. Good stuff. Anyway, meanwhile, that was a happy moment.
But we didn't get to any of the good stuff.
Did you talk about hospitality at all today? I feel like
briefly. I think we mentioned the word, but I think we got away with it. Nobody noticed. So, with that in mind, Mr. Ed, if people want to know more about Flip2 and yourself, where is it that they may find you?
Flip.to or Edward St. Ange on all things social. Oh, and stay off my Twitter because I'm just talking a lot about UCF football, so don't bother.
You are in that mode, yes. And Mr. Stewart, for Fuel Traveling yourself and your excellent podcast, which I also will make sure I listen to. And I listened to your fun podcast, by the way. That was great.
That was ridiculous. But you can find us on social media at Fuel Travel or fueltravel.com/podcast to download the podcast.
And Mr. Robert with the cats.
Robert K. Cole, Seth and Kelso. Robert K. Cole or rockcheetah.com.
Excellent. And with my website now newly migrated over to a new hosting, you can find it at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com for this show.
Is it a new design or just a new host?
New host. I had to get it off of the
function.
No, not yet.
Is it findable on search engines now?
Kind of. Maybe if you really want to look for like
browser.
If you probably if you just directly type it in. It's very mobile friendly. You can pull up the same crappy page on the mobile platform just as easy as you can on the desktop.
Lauren is the epitome of the plight of the mechanic.
Yes, the car doesn't work. The mechanic's car doesn't work. The painter's house isn't painted. I have the crappiest website in the universe, but I give hopefully better advice than my website. But
do as he says, not as he does.
Yeah, do not look at my website as an indication of my prowess on building websites, because I never get to it. But anyway, with that, thank you, gentlemen. I will next week. Are you guys going to be taking off for the holidays, or are you going to be able to make it? Or
I'm going to try to make it next week. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? HospitalityDigitalMarketing.com, and I believe it is spelled correctly. I'm getting a GoDaddy page.
See,
so you
it
know.
works great. It works
That's
great.
Just so you know, Lauren.
That's the version of that site there's ever been.
That's the best ever. Hey, well, maybe. Oh, you know what? It probably is.
Park page.
It's been migrating for the past 12 hours. We got to let it roast for another 12 before we take it out of the
12 hours. Yikes.
That's what happens when you have 6 weeks of streaming video.
Yeah, it's a little slow on the data transfer, but yeah. So give it a few hours before you go look for the archive of this show. But yes, it'll be out there. It'll be on Facebook faster, I guess.
Oh no! Hey, it just updated. I got a 404 page.
Okay. Yes, it's getting better as we speak.
Yeah.
It's getting better as we speak. This is awesome. All right, with that in mind, gentlemen, thank you so very much. And next week, I should actually have my brand new super spiffy iMac 5K, so my camera should be in a different location, and I'll be smiling from ear to ear because I got new technology.
Be like this.
As long as your broadband provider doesn't throttle your internet by then, you know.
My broadband provider already throttles. I go. I'm trying to get off of them. They're crappy.
My internet slows now because of Lauren.
Yeah.
Exactly. Actually, the lights dim in Florida.
I'm 75 miles in my internet.
Yeah, I dim the lights in my neighborhood. Yes,
the volume in South Beach clubs lowers because of Lauren.
Yeah, that's true. Gentlemen, thank you very much as always. And Hayden, if you play this back, thank you so much for having joined us. And it is an open invitation to join us
to this point.
Yeah,
no, this is the value for an hour.
Oh, I say only 5 minutes. We talked a little bit about stuff, but anyway, gentlemen, thank you. We'll talk to you
guys.
Friday.
Take care.